Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Uncle Greg Show podcast. Welcome to a new season of the Uncle Greg Show podcast. New year, new season, and new music. So we're going to first I want to thank everyone from last year for listening. All those who are consistently listening. As you listen to me, I listen to you, and you make a request or ask me to cover certain topics or talk to certain people or do certain things. That being said, we're going to go into the new year with that in mind, and we're going to change a few things up and for your enjoyment, hopefully, and as well as your education. First off, I want to say one of the things we're going to do is I'm going to be more positive. We're going to have a more positive and upbeat type of podcast, type of discussion. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things that are wrong going on and in this country and in this world, especially when it comes to our youth. I mean, I don't need to go into talking about 6-year-old kids shooting teachers, teenagers shooting each other. It's just seems these things have got out of hand. We will talk about them. We just won't dwell on them. If you have solutions to solve these type of problems, I'm all ears. If you want to come on and discuss it, I'm all ears for that as well. But we're going to talk about things that are more, I guess, as I said, more positive and more solution oriented. Don't get it twisted. Uncle Greg ain't changed one bit. I'm still the same opinionated individual. I have a lot of opinions about a lot of things. A lot of things still make me upset and angry. But there are a lot of there are a lot of things that we should be covering, or that we can be covering, and I'm going to endeavor to do so. And one of those things you can count on. I'm going to try to do this. The people have spoken. The people are very positive and happy whenever I do this musical journey. And so, for a limited time only, your Uncle Greg's going to try to do this on a monthly basis. I'm going to take you on Uncle Greg's monthly musical journey, where I'll just pick songs that I feel and I'll share them with you. Maybe I have a story about the song, individual songs. Maybe I won't, but I will plan on doing that at least once a month, and probably the next episode after this one, since the month is closing. That's exactly what I'm going to do. As I said, people have spoken. Uncle Greg listens. You can count on every episode of the Uncle Greg podcast also being on YouTube. There's a YouTube channel for Uncle Greg. Well, I believe it's You Greg on YouTube. I'll put the link in the description. And I'm doing this for those who are not as tech savvy as these younger generations, and have difficulty locating the podcast, but they're very adept at locating things on YouTube. So I'm going to put the link for the YouTube channel, and you can count on every single episode being on the YouTube channel going forward. And the fourth thing I wanted to cover is that, let me preface this first. I mean this for everybody that's listening. If you recognize all the God-given talents that you've been given, and you're not utilized, or at least not making an attempt to utilize them, such as I was, shame on you. And I implore you to do that. There's nothing sadder than wasted gifts. And we need to be doing a better job of not just encouraging other people to use their gifts, but encouraging ourselves. And I plan to do just that. I am doing multiple things. My little sister told me that I ought to be, showing people how to do different things and the talents that I have, and I plan to do that. But I also plan to push myself to you at this stage in my life. So if you're younger, hey, you recognize your talents, start pushing yourself now. Don't wait as long as I did. And the reason for me waiting, I'll talk about that later on. But as I said, I'm going to push myself to utilize every talent that I have and because boy, until you sit down and take a personal inventory of yourself, you never recognize just how talented you truly are, and you might be. And it could be your passion for something and you're just blowing it off. So it could be a hobby. I get around to it later. No, don't put it off. Do it now. Do it today, because the world needs more people who are utilizing their gifts. We need it. Our community needs it. It's so sad that we have generations growing up that you have so many people that want to focus on one particular area, and it might not be where their talent lies at all. On that area happens to be entertainment. We had discussions about that before. Let me say this: IG model is not a profession, and trust me, all you young ladies that are striving for that, that's not where the majority of talents lie, because basically it doesn't take any talent to go into that in the first place. But that's another story. But you do need to recognize your talent and do your best to show those talents and those gifts to the world. And that's what I'm doing. And now, that being said, you're well aware that I have my own safety consultant business, TLAC Now. I will be, in a very short time, expanding into another podcast that's going to be personal safety related. I should have done this a long time ago, but doing this podcast finally gave me not just the motivation, but also the courage to step out and do that other podcast, because I know the audience will be very much more diverse than the audience I have on this podcast. And that's a good thing, because we want everybody to be safe. This being said, in light of, I'm recording this at the time where the Asian community suffered a tremendous loss in Monterey Park, California, where 11 people, the guy went in there for whatever reason he did and shot 20 people, 11 of whom have died. One died today, so that added to the total of 10. This world and this country is a very dangerous place. You walk out of the door, it's just that crucial that we do a better job of protecting ourselves and those we love. And the thing is, when we talk about safety, well, let me make this quick distinguish something real quick. Safety and security are not the same thing. Security contributes to safety, but they're not the same thing. And I'll go in depth about that on the podcast, which is called Building a Safer You. I'll also put a link in the description so you can come over, or you can just go to the tlacnow.com website, and it'll be a link this week directly to that podcast. Well, and that podcast will be also on the YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel for TLAC. I put video out. And let me add this as well. I've started a series for domestic violence survivors, because there are just too many people, I'm not just saying women, that are being victimized, hurt, injured, and even killed by their former spouses, lovers, boyfriends, girlfriends. And it's not enough being said about it. Obviously, there's not enough being done about it, but it's in the paper every day. And I mean, it's impacting our community a great deal. So I took up on myself to put together a series called Surviving the X, where on each episode of this video series that's running free, there's that key word y'all love, free, on the TLAC YouTube channel. Yeah, each episode will talk about different aspects of safety and how to keep yourself safe and what you need to do post relationship. Because as I said, just because you think you've ended the relationship doesn't necessarily mean that the person you broke up with agrees with that, or more importantly, accepts that fact. And you need to be cognizant of that for the simple fact that if you take that for granted and don't think that harm can come to you from that individual, you're sadly mistaken. And it doesn't just impact you. It impacts your children, if you have children, obviously. It impacts your loved ones, your family. There was a story where a guy, he was in love with this girl, went to her parents' house and killed her entire family, all because the girl turned down his advances, so it can impact everyone. And so I implore you, even if you're not a survivor of domestic abuse, first I implore you to share that information with those you might know who are, but at the same time, you might listen to yourself, because we should all be advocates for domestic violence awareness and do what we can to help those that we can. I saw an interesting stat about that, just as I digress, that I did not know. Oklahoma is the state in the United States has the highest number or the highest percentage of domestic violence cases. I did not know that. And it said that over 49, we may as well say 50% of the women in Oklahoma have been involved in domestic violence. Now, if that doesn't say enough, as victims, the other stat that was surprising is that 40% of the men have been victims of domestic violence. Now, that is a heck of a stat. Me being right down the street from Oklahoma, I'm going to be aware of that. I guess all those casinos they built up there probably contribute to those statistics. But I just found that very astounding. I was astounded by that fact. So it's something to think about, all you people up there in Oklahoma. But anyway, as I was saying, we're going to do things differently. We're going to have a much better time this year than we did last year, and so forth and so on. You want to always improve on what you're doing or what I'm doing, and I want to improve on this podcast as well. I'm going to have a wide variety of guests. I had a few guests last year. I'm going to plan to have even more this year to talk about issues. As I said, this podcast was originally started to talk about safety and safety in the community. Well, as I said, it's expanded, and the safety component will be moving over to the Building a Safer You podcast. Now, that's not to say that we won't talk about some safety issues on here, personal safety issues, and especially those that impact our community. We'll be talking about these kids more so than anything, because it seems like these teenagers and younger are doing things that are impacting our community more so than these kids are worse on the community than the cops, these corrupt cops. But the 5 brothers and the 5 black cops in Memphis, that recently got in trouble for killing a black guy, notwithstanding, but these kids are still out of control. I mean, let's face it. It's you can't turn on the television without seeing some story about teens or youths in our community causing problems and hurting people and killing people. I mean, even younger kids. So I am sick and tired of reading stories about some kid who had a bright future in athletics or in academics or whatever, who lost their life because of some senseless teen violence. So, obviously we'll discuss those things and discuss if we can come up with some type of solution. We share it with the world. Do our part to make the world a better a better place. Sorry for that brief pause. My cousin just sent me a news story. I had read this earlier, but I blew it off. But I got to mention this because I was educating him on some facts about this song. I don't know if you saw this, but let me just read this to you. Aretha Franklin's 1968 song, Natural Women, perpetuates multiple harmful anti-trans stereotypes. There is no such thing as a natural woman. This song has helped inspire acts of harm against transgender women. TCMA is requesting it is removed from Spotify and Apple Music. Okay, TCMA stands for the Transcultural Mindfulness Alliance. So the trans community has decided that they want to cancel Aretha Franklin's song, You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. Okay, well, I got plenty of thoughts on this as well as on the trans community. My point being that I've always had what they call them, the alphabet community. I've always had my opinion about the alphabet community. You know, it's like people feel like they can say and do whatever they want, and they get a pass on being just as racist as some of the white supremacists, which they are. There are plenty, and I've talked to plenty of black people from that community who validated that for me, you know. And in my opinion, they've exploited us, or members of our community within that community, to further their own agenda, which is not all inclusive. How hypocritical. But anyway, I was telling my cousin about this. I said, I find it mighty strange that they attack Aretha Franklin in all of this. And this is an example of what I was just talking about. I find it mighty strange that they attack Aretha Franklin, but they make no mention of Carole King and her husband who wrote the song, and Carole King, who's also performed the song as well. But they want to single out Aretha Franklin. Okay. As I said, we're going to remain positive. We're going to try to stay upbeat and positive. But I can tell you this, I'm positive that I'm going to see something every day that's going to piss me off. So this is a learning process, you know, so don't expect me to change and go cold turkey overnight. Because like I said, we're always under attack one way or another. And it's only the complacent, what I call them. You're either a crusader, a coon, or complacent. And I'm not a coon, and I'm not complacent. So just remember that. And anyway, I want you all to have a good year. I want all of us to have a good year, great year, a blessed year, a prosperous year, a happy year. So let's kick things off on the right foot and end this on a positive note. No, I'm not playing a song. Wait till the next episode. I got you there, didn't I? Anyway, this is your Uncle Greg. I also want you to have a safe year, you and yours. So, as I said, this is your Uncle Greg. And until the next time, be safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Uncle Greg Show podcast. Be sure that you like, share, and subscribe this podcast on all social media platforms. And if you have any comments, feel free to email. The links and details for all social media platforms and email address for the Uncle Greg Show podcast are contained in the details section of each podcast. Thank you for listening and be safe.